Good morning, everyone. I'm Kristen Phillips, and I'm your worship associate this morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia. It's great to see so many of you here, whether you're visiting for the first time, a longtime member, just checking us out. We are really glad you're here. We are diverse in many ways as a Unitarian Universalist congregation, but we are united in our belief in the inherent worth and dignity of every person and in our responsibility to carry out our mission to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world. If you are new this morning, I would encourage you to fill out an online visitor card. Our chaplain will be putting a link in so that you can direct yourselves to that, or you can go to our website so that we can be in touch with you after this service. Now I'd like to invite you to put your name in the chat box and where you might be joining us or where you are joining us this morning. I know we've got people from all over the city and even all over the country. So we've got West Philly, Ardmore, South Philly, Michigan, Collinswood, New Jersey, Fishtown, Concord, Mass. All right, another Michigan. Albuquerque. Wow, we are really spreading our wings here. Washington, D.C., Point Breeze, West Philly. Fantastic. Northeast Philly, Conshohocken, North Philly, 22nd and Christian, not too far from where we're at. New Hampshire, Columbia, Maryland, Fairmont. This is really cool. Kensington, Coatesville, Juniper and Spruce, another neighbor there. Lebanon, Simpson House. Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to have you here. And again, if you are visiting this morning, I would encourage you to fill out a visitor card. We would love to be in touch with you after today's service. Beyond today's service, there are a lot of ways that you can connect with the church. For those of you who would like to stay on after our service this morning, we will be having coffee hour. All you need to do is stay on this Zoom service, and we'll take a few minutes after the service. You can refresh your coffee, maybe take a little bio break, and then you'll be split up into small groups randomly to just chat for about 15 minutes. And after that time, we will all come back together and say goodbye to one another. It's a lot of fun. We also have some children's offerings today, as well as a parent support group. So would encourage you, the children's offerings are from 12:30 to 1:30 today, as well as 7 to 7:30 this evening. So encourage you to take advantage of those. We have a social justice ask or initiative, which is a letter to Governor Wolf. Join us in calling on the governor to take more expansive action to protect the health of prisoners and correction personnel. You will see a link to a letter that you can sign and send directly. More voices to be heard on this issue will help us influence better outcomes. And finally, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about this church and our faith, there is going to be a UU and U session led by Reverend Hannah at 1 o'clock following this service. And I'm assuming it is on the same Zoom link as the service. If that is not correct, I'm sure Hannah will correct me once she comes on board. Again, welcome to First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia. And at this point now, I would like to transition to the Wiley Santoro family to help us light our chalice.
No. Oh, no. Okay. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our power to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, to serve the spirit of freedom and the fullness of community.
We invite you in the chat box to tell us where tell us that your chalice is lit and tell us where you are lighting your chalice.
The face you're making, Maria.
Okay, 43rd and Pine, the chalice is lit. Near Clark Park in Kensington, in the Grad Hospital, Collingswood, New Jersey. Wow, a lot of people, it's going fast. Germantown, Haddonfield, New Jersey, more Collingswood, 48th in Baltimore, Ann Arbor, Baltimore, Rittenhouse, Conshohocken, Monroe, New Jersey, Powelton Village, a whole
Portland,
lot of people.
Maine.
Ooh, Michigan,
And,
Port
and
Richmond, Center City, Connecticut, I see. North Carolina, I see. All right. Point Breeze, just like us here in Point Breeze.
And now we invite you to join us in singing Meditation on Breathing by Sarah Dan Jones.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi. I'm the Minister for Faith Formation here. It is my pleasure to serve you on this gray day in Philadelphia. I'm glad we can be together. One small correction, Kristen, I thank you for the invitation to do so, but the UU and U session after the service will actually happen at a different link. And Kate, as the chat chaplain, I think you posted that into the chat, but if you could do so again for folks who would like to spend some time with me from 1 to 2, getting to know more about Unitarian Universalism and the service and our church and our congregation. Let us settle into prayer. settle into a meditative place, let us breathe. Find your breath in and out. At this time, I light the first of our 3 prayer candles. I light this first candle for the whole of creation. Let this flame remind us that we are a part of something larger, that we lift into the light and the warmth of this flame all beings, great and small, that we hurt when they are hurting and we are lifted when they are lifted. For the whole of creation, we light this candle in gratitude that we are not alone, in gratitude for that which makes us feel connected, which makes us feel loved and cherished, for that which allows us this space to worship together, to pray together, to sing together. This first flame is a reminder of all that. I light a second flame. For those in our community who need our prayers of strength, our prayers of hope. In particular, we think of the Carberry family and Kitty's father, John, who's sick with COVID. We wish him health. We pray for rest and peace for their family during this time. If there are those you would like lifted in prayer, I invite you to type their name into the chat and I will read them aloud. For Ginny, for Teresa, Grant, Chrissy, for Dave, Naya, Alana, my brothers, for all those incarcerated, healthcare workers, Dondre, Mary, Carmen, Shirley, Roselia, Tracy, Carrie, James, Pete and Nina. All those observing Ramadan Mubarak to all of those. Josh and Nikki, Shannon, those in Georgia, Rachel, Lana, Lily, and Meg, Barb, Barbara, and Abe. For all these, we lift in prayer. I light a third candle. For all the names we carry with us in our hearts, but haven't been shared. For the names and faces and people who are with us each day, in our souls and in our bodies, in our hearts and minds, we light this final candle to mark the holiness of their time and our time, and of this present moment. This third flame for all that we cannot speak aloud, for all that we wrestle with privately, intimately, for all the ways our lives are like a river, at times swollen and rushing and crashing over the banks, and at times lazy and serene, a source of joy and fun, a source of fear and worry. we return to our breath, the steadying breath, the keel of our life, in and out. With these prayers in our hearts, we send them forth with hope and yearning to all those who need it most. Blessed be, and amen. My parents are moving out of my childhood home. And with that came a box to me of old calendars, the bound kind. I'm one of those people who uses moleskins. I've used calendars since I was in high school. They are my version of a journal. When I was younger, I marked in field hockey games and birthday parties. In school, it was exam deadlines and concerts. And in my young adulthood, it was more protests and dinner parties. But hidden in those appointments and due dates were memories that gave me great pleasure to read back through. That field hockey game where I introduced my parents to my first girlfriend. The concert where I learned the magic of listening to an artist's catalog at top volume the whole ride there. The dinner party where Livia and I cooked a fish so big we had to cut it in half to fit in the oven. I'm a nostalgic person, you might say. I like to revisit these memories because I feel like I can still awaken the intensity of that moment when I think about those dates and those weeks and those months. I feel like I can transport myself back to those good times and also to the hard times, and I marvel at the passage of time. Recently, reviewing these old calendars has been more painful. I miss my old life. I miss the way things were. I miss the casualness with which I suggested a hangout. I miss sweaty dancing at a concert alongside 100 other people electrified by live music. I miss standing at my stove cooking while my friend nurses a cocktail an arm's length away, never realizing just how easy I could reach out and hug them. I miss seeing people's faces as I move through the day. When I reflect on how I kept my calendars, how I filled them, it wasn't a daily recording, it was a future-looking thing. I marked down visits from my long-distance love weeks in advance. I marked down camping trips months ahead. I marked down weddings when the saved the date arrived and family holidays at the start of the year. Special stuff were the goals I attained as I moved through life. Special stuff were the times I felt happiest, surrounded by loved ones or trying new things. It was a motivational strategy, a way of keeping me feeling focused and happy by peppering the pages of the calendar with things to look forward to. And this strategy served me well for years. It was my old and reliable mechanism for keeping depression at bay, for keeping despair from creeping in. It kept me pushing forward into the future. Eventually, I knew I'd arrive at something special. There's no countdown in my life right now. There's nothing to anticipate in the coming days, propelling me forward in this time of quarantine, of days bleeding together, of weeks running into one another, of nothing written in the calendar. In fact, many things crossed off or scratched through. I'm faced with this overdeveloped muscle of looking forward when there's nothing to see. There's nothing on the horizon. I've been forced to shift my perspective from the long distance, not even to the middle distance, but to the very immediate present. Special stuff has gotten closer. When my grandmother was a small child, she would get an orange in her stocking come Christmas. I always found this absurd as a kid. An orange? Who would delight in an orange for a Christmas present? It always came with a bit of a, I walked to school uphill both ways in the snow kind of a tone. And I dismissed it as an irrelevant anecdote about just how old my grandmother was, just how much had changed. Oranges as special, as worthy of Christmas joy? Fast forward to this week. Olivia and I have been using this hyper-local pandemic pantry, CSA, for our groceries. We get the order form on Wednesdays, and it changes week to week based on what is available. This Wednesday, Livia opens the form and gives a shout, they have tomatoes. What? Oh my God, hooray, tomatoes. How we had longed for tomatoes, dreamed about tomatoes, those perfect small red fruit for roasting, for sandwiches, for salads, for alongside salty cheese and smushed alongside the world's greatest condiment, Hellmann's mayonnaise. How we longed for tomatoes. And now we had the chance to get some. Suddenly, my grandmother's delight in an orange felt intimately familiar. Suddenly, the thing I'm looking forward to, the thing on the horizon motivating me, it's tomatoes. Suddenly, those moments of transcendence when I feel part of something bigger, when it used to be a concert, is waving across the street at neighbors I didn't know before. Suddenly, those moments of joy when I feel outside my body and unself-conscious, where it used to be long, lazy dinners with close friends, it's doing YouTube dance tutorials with my sister on FaceTime. Suddenly, I'm attuned to small delights. The abundance that used to be cascading waves of tomatoes is an abundance of fleeting moments in the present, and I realize my life still has meaning. Our lives still have meaning, and they have variety, and it is not just sameness day in and day out. But it's not fireworks. It's sparklers. It's not concerts. It's virtual coffee houses. Small delights, and the faith that they have carried me this far. Indeed, they have been there all along in my immediate present when I was obsessing about the future, planning for days ahead instead of the day at hand. The last month or so, I've struggled. I've struggled with the part of myself that held fast to calendars with looming horizons of special things. I found myself bereft of things to look forward to, instead resigned to the coming and going of yet another day in my house, another evening on my couch. Mohsin Hamid, in his novel Exit West, offers us this insight. It has been said that depression is a failure to imagine a plausible, desirable future for oneself. When I read those words, I was struck by how true it felt these days. And we are sharing this depression. It is a family-style meal. We are all disoriented to what the future might look like, what the future might hold. We are holding our breath for signs that it might be desirable. But the saving grace, the redeeming moment of this time is in the small delights. Dr. Deepali Mukhopadhyay, a professor of political science and conflict studies at Columbia, observed that we have much to learn from the Afghan people during this time. She writes, "There's an assumption that you have no idea how things will be tomorrow. And something terrible probably happened yesterday. As a result, You live in the moment. No longer consumed by that which is coming down the pike, we find our days seasoned with small but mighty opportunities for laughter, for connection, for reprieve from the depression. It's the toddler who mercifully slept in. It's the card that arrived in the mail. It's the relief that the milk will last one more day and you can have it in your coffee. Hallelujah. It is the sun. For I have never been more grateful for good weather than I am these days. I have never been more delighted by the warmth of the sun's rays than when I ride my bike down the street and I smell blossoms. Starved for stimulation, laid low by the lack of calendar-worthy events, suddenly the valley in my life is giving way to new peaks, new vistas, new views. The rest of the Hamid quote reads, "It has been said that depression is a failure to imagine a plausible, desirable future for oneself," which is to say that the changes were jarring, but they were not the end, and life went on. And people found things to do and ways to be and people to be with, and plausible, desirable futures began to emerge, unimaginable previously, but not unimaginable now. And the result was something like relief. People found things to do and ways to be, and plausible, desirable futures began to emerge, unimaginable previously, and the result was something like relief. With every passing week, I'm hearing our people increasingly talk about settling, about finding routines, and there is a sense of relief here, an exhalation. That in fact, the intensity and the chaos of the initial weeks of quarantine have given way to a modicum of predictability, a semblance of relief, and an awe that life will continue on, whether it looks the way we imagined or not. So we are left with our holy choice. The choice to seek out delight in our days, to teach ourselves new ways of being. To recognize that heaven is here on earth always. It never stops being possible. It might just be a matter of perspective. We must have faith, my friends. We must keep the faith. We must tend to the faith that those desirable futures are waiting for us. But for now, we must know that small delights will get us through. Like tomatoes and Hellmann's and oranges in the stocking, small delights will show us the beauty of the present moment, the relief of our daily gift. One more day to live. Blessed be, and may it be so. Amen.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. come to me, come to me.
Thank you, Reverend Hannah. I think we can see from the chat that your message certainly resonated. As a fellow calendar keeper myself, I will have to confess, like many of you, I've used this time to clear out some of the clutter that is amassed in our house over the last almost 9 years. And I found myself unable to throw away some calendars that I have in my office closet here for that very reason. And you helped shed some light there as to why. You know, I have to confess, and this church tends to bring out my true confessions here, whether I'm on the physical pulpit or virtual pulpit, but I have to confess, I was pretty cavalier when this entire pandemic crisis started. I still remember my last business trip. In fact, my last trip, period, for a while was to Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the end of February for work. And I remember talking to one of my colleagues about plans for the next upcoming weekend and the next few weeks. And my husband and I had a trip to Boston planned in mid-March for his birthday. And we were talking about that, and she was asking, well, do you think you guys will still go? And I was like, yeah, of course we're gonna go. I mean, we can just as easily protect ourselves in Boston as we can here in Philadelphia, so why not? And then I remember that weekend, March 1st, being in church, and Reverend Abby started talking about preparations in the event that we weren't able to come back to church. And as an aside, that was my last time in our sanctuary because I missed the March 8th service. Daylight savings time and springing forward kind of got the best of me that Sunday. But Abby talked about the fact that we were making preparations to go online if we had to and couldn't gather in the church. And I remember thinking, there's no way that's going to happen. Come on. This is just like the flu. We're going to get through this. That's just not going to happen. And then the weekend of March 15th, and we made the announcement that we were going online. And I remember thinking, I don't think I'm going to be into these online services. That's just not for me. And in fact, it didn't turn out to be for me that weekend because I was in meetings most of the weekend as my company was figuring out what we were going to do and how we were going to respond vis-a-vis going into the office or working from home. And we ended up going to a complete remote work situation that following Monday, which turned out to obviously be the right decision for our employees and the company. So my first church service online service wasn't until March 22nd. And wow, I was blown away. It was just seeing all of you, hearing the messages from Reverend Hannah and Reverend Abby, the music and the creativity of our musicians in this congregation to patch together these very meaningful musical experiences. I was blown away. And while it isn't quite like being in our physical space together, it's certainly not a bad substitute, a small delight, if you will. I just felt waves of peace flow over me, anxiety leaving, even if only for an hour that week, it helped. Similar to when we're together physically, it helps. But I think even more so, being a part of this community, this congregation, whether we're online or physically together, has been a touchstone that's helped keep me through as we enter week 7 of this stay-at-home situation. It's been, to quote Reverend Hannah, a reprieve from depression every week, and helps me to identify and really seek joy in those small delights every day. And I invite you, if you feel that way, if this online community, whether you're here in Philadelphia or visiting us from Michigan, or Connecticut or Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, I invite you to share some of your treasure with this organization to the extent that you are able to help keep us going during these difficult times. You can give online through our website at philauu.org, and there's a donate button on the website. Or if you'd like to text your gift, you can text the dollar amount that you want to give to 215-709-5095. And it's super easy. We've given that way. If it's a first-time gift, you will be prompted to complete certain information so that your gift can be processed, but then thereafter, it's really easy. You just text the dollar amount you want to give to that number. Speaking of finances, I do want to, I know there's been a lot of questions and concerns expressed about the finances of this institution of our church. And next week, after coffee hour, there will be a budget session to review where we're at, where we're headed, and a forward-looking view of the finances. And unlike the UU and U, which is a different Zoom link, this will be the same Zoom meeting that will happen after coffee hour next Sunday, May the 3rd. So I invite you to tune in to that. And now I want to introduce our band, and let me pull up, I want to make sure I get this right. As I mentioned, I think we are so lucky to have this First Unitarian Universalist band at our church. I mean, they just hit it out of the park every week, and it's something I think we all look forward to in our services. Today, they are going to be singing and playing a version of Feelin' All Right, which was written by Dave Mason and adapted by Joe Cocker and our own Tim Lulofs. Tim wrote a different verse for this song, so have a listen to the First Unitarian Band.
Seems I got to have a change of scene. 'Cause every night I have the strangest dream. Imprisoned by the way it could have been. Left here on my own, so it seems. I've got to leave before I start to scream. Someone's locked the door and took the key. Feeling alright, not feeling good myself. Feeling alright, not feeling good myself. Sure took us for one big ride, and even now we sit and wonder why. When you move your lips, you can't help but lie. You never tell the truth, you don't even try. We've got to dig out of this hole you put us in. Gonna shake off your nonsense, start living again, feeling alright. Not feeling good myself. Feeling alright. Not feeling good myself. too lost in all I say. But at the time, you know, I really felt that way. That was then, and now you know it's today. I can't get set, so I guess I'm here to stay. Till someone comes along and takes my place with a different name, oh, and a different face. You're feeling alright, not feeling good myself. 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 Feeling alright. Yeah!
So good. So good. And I'm seeing stuff in the chat about creating the groupies spelled with a U and a U. And I think it's great. Let's oh, that is more than a small delight, band. More than a small delight. I invite you all to join me in extinguishing our chalice flame with our usual words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I invite you to type into the chat, I carry the flame. To note to yourself that you carry the warmth of the chalice with you six days a week until we meet again on Sunday to light it once more. It was good to be together today. We are feeling all right, despite moments of not feeling too good. Find the small delights this week. Find the tomatoes and the oranges. Find the smells and the bowls of cereal. Find the flowers and the cat. These are just the things that come to mind to me that bring me small delights each day. Missing you all. Loving you all. Blessed be. Amen.